Hiya, I'm Moonspoon, and today I'll be playing some Death Road to Canada. Today's question is, what is your favorite part about Christmas? Giving or receiving gifts? Answer in the comments below, on to the video. Alright, so today's video is going to be Christmas themed, and we're starting off with these two people right here, which is supposed to be Santa and Mrs. Claus. So I know this game actually has a Santa Claus, but yeah, we're gonna ignore that part. Alright, so going over the characteristics, we got Santa up here, and he has the Explorer perk. So basically, during the Always Be Looting events, we will have extra options, and it wouldn't cost as much gas. And then he has the Gourmand trait, which means that he eats extra meals, and it also means that his morale can go up based off eating a full meal. And then we have Mrs. Claus, which has the perk Friend of Dog, which I've used inside a previous video. And the reason why I gave her this is because dogs and reindeer are probably similar in a way. And then I also gave her the Nurturing trait. So the Nurturing trait makes it so that she has 2 points more in medical, and she has a great attitude, and it's also put on here that it could be an act. Her being nice can be an act. So I'll be doing this challenge in the short trip mode, and as you can tell, it's the 9 driving days rather than regular 15 days. So some other things to point out about this challenge, I decided to give myself 3 attempts. So my first attempt, I was in Walmart, I got cornered, they took Santa out. I only had 3 days left to get to Canada, but I wasn't able to make it. Something to point out about the second attempt is I, was a jolly good fellow, and I let Santa just continuously give this man some food, and eventually I unlocked a new trait, which is Sound Sleeper. Another thing I would like to point out about attempt number 2 is that I ran into the bandits who are super swole, and whenever I see this I thought, okay, Mrs. Claus, I didn't know she was tough like that, but I decided to let Mrs. Claus challenge them to a pose off instead of losing the 12 food, and they felt so disrespected that we lost like everything. We lost all of our food, which was 45. That's a whole lot of food. So it made things really difficult. We ran out of gas real fast, so I decided I had a dog in this playthrough, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna run to the car real quick and the zombies, and yeah, no, I left the Clauses in the back, and the zombies closed in on them real easy. So they didn't make it past the 3 days to Canada again. And this right here is my third attempt. So I decided to start off by going to Walmart because Santa eats a lot of food compared to the normal person, and I like to stack up on food as much as possible. After being done with the Walmart, I had this scenario that I've never seen before, and it's like 3 graves and you can like choose to dig up one, and I ended up choosing to dig up this one that probably says Hagrid, and they ended up finding some love letters, and they found a whole bunch of food, which is really great. That's what I really need. And then we have the scenario where they have to stay up and watch for bandits. So I was like, let me think. I looked at the little stats and everything. I was like, I don't know who can be good for this, but I decided to give to Mrs. Claus. And she ignored the task, and we lost some stuff, and we found out that she's not very loyal, which is very interesting. Afterwards, we went to this trader camp, and I've never seen a witch inside the trader camp, and I could have got a black cat for 13 food, but I only had 14 food left, so I decided to leave her, and eventually I did find something else. So I decided to buy a fire axe for 6 food. So I told myself during this challenge I would only be recruiting the dogs as like the reindeer, but honorable mention to El Satan over here. I thought about recruiting him. I was like, oh, it's just Santa spelled a different way, but I didn't recruit him. Then we come up here on our very first siege, and I would say the very first sieges are actually pretty easy in this game. I mean, even with just 2 people, they're not anything too crazy. I think it's also really good that I had like the fire axe, because I'm pretty sure it has a bit more strength, but also your character can get really tired if they're not strong and they're using this a lot. So I try to switch between having the fire axe and a lighter weapon. We also got a chainsaw from the place, which is like a super good weapon for like sieges. Then during the Always Be Looting events, one of the places they offered was a junkyard with a car. So I decided to look, and I finally found out what the little symbols with the car and the little wrench meant. So the engine was getting pretty low, so that means that the car could break down. So I decided to do the junkyard with the car, just to switch up the car, and yeah, you don't want the car to break down. So we almost got surrounded by some zombies in this corner because I'm just really good at doing that to myself, but I used a chainsaw to clear them out. Eventually we got this big old van right here. I hate getting the big vans because they're slower, and there are some like car events that this doesn't really help with, but it's a different car. And that's what I really wanted, a different car and some more gas. We then went to another trader camp. So eventually, after walking around and doing a little loop throughout the trader camp, I went up to this guy and got a tactical spear for 9 food. I just really like the spears in this game, I don't know why. Then we encountered a dog, but I decided to leave the dog behind because I didn't know if I really wanted a dog at the time. And that, for some reason, was the only dog we encountered the whole trip. Then we had another looting, and I decided to go to the stash in the wood. So it was nighttime, I had my tactical spear, it was pretty dark. There was some pretty good stuff in here. I mean, I've been to cabins and they've had better stuff, but it was still something. So we got in a car and left, we got some pretty good stuff, and a scenario popped up once again. So the bandits were challenging us to a pose off, or we can like give them 9 food to pass safely. I said, you know what, go ahead, take the 9 food. I'm not losing everything again. The morale went down, but it's fine. They're pretty jolly, pretty happy. The next looting place I decided to go to, I decided to actually use Santa's Explorer perk, and I ended up going to a small suburb. So the suburb was basically these 3 houses at the very end of the street. The other ones were like blocked in, you couldn't get into them. But you know, I found a lot of stuff. A lot of the places that I decided to aim for are places where I think there's going to be food at, because I know food keeps Santa happy and jolly, and you know, it's like, you know, get cookies at the house every Christmas. I also ended up giving Mrs. Claus the fire axe because she's, you know, putting in a lot of work, and I'm like, you should probably have a stronger weapon than whatever she was using at first. But after getting out of those 3 houses, we continued on our trip. So after this, we ended up losing our car, and this was actually the most peaceful time of losing our car ever, because look at the titles of the things, like it's a nice walk, like they're just out here enjoying walking for some reason. Then we had a scenario, peaceful camp, like I felt so lucky. Nothing bad had happened at all so far with us not having a car. And then the last one, they found a rest stop with a car, just walking along. So of course, we went to the rest stop, collected as much gas as I could, and also found the keys. And after finding the keys, that was like the most successful not having a car for a long time things have gone. So then we had the scenario where we could like siphon some gas, and I know that someone's morale usually goes down, so I let Santa do it because I know his morale is going to go right back up whenever he eats food. Big brain move right there. We then go to another trader camp. And this trader camp didn't really have much. I decided to do this group fitness training, and Santa was very much giving Santa. His fitness really sucks, and it still really sucks after the training. We then had a scenario I've never seen before, or at least don't remember, but we are trapped inside of a factory complex, and we have to find a way out. So for the longest times, I'm gonna end up skipping so much. I was fighting this like it was a siege, like I was getting Molotovs out and everything, and I also forgot to give myself a flashlight because I didn't read that it was late at night. Or maybe I did read it, but I thought that, oh, we're inside of a factory, so there should be lights inside the factory. So here's me skipping, and I decided to actually try to look for an exit because I was like, I don't really hear siege music and I don't understand what's going on. So Mrs. Claus definitely took some hits. I had to like change like our fighting, instead of like being offensive, being defensive. But I finally found a ladder and got out. Next, I decided to go to an infested stronghold. So we made it past the 3 days left. You see, there's 2 days left until Canada. And being here, I was like, there's a lot of zombies here. Like, I had to change our status again so we can go back to fighting. And I was like, this isn't a siege. There's just a lot of, like, I understand it's infested, but it's kind of a lot. So you can see Mrs. Claus was out here getting super duper tired. So Mrs. Claus did not make it out of Fred's fort, and I decided, you know what? I'm gonna see if I can go into a building real quick. And I kept seeing there was just so many zombies surrounding me. I said, I'm gonna leave. So next we went up to the last trader camp, and I didn't really get much from here. I thought it was really interesting, like out of nowhere, just like Star was following us around, and I was like, leave Star, you know, I don't really need a little elf to follow me around, but she was following me around. I've never seen this at a trader camp where just one of the custom characters follows you around. But eventually I decided to recruit her just because she's someone who could be recruited for free. So boom, Santa had a little elf worker helping him out. Then this was another siege. We had one day until we got to Canada, and I really hated this siege because, as you could tell, there is not a lot of room, and room is super important. And not only was there not a lot of room, we didn't have a lot of people to help fight. So you can see me trying to start up my chainsaw. It did not work. Star died, Santa died, and Christmas just did not happen that year. Maybe I'll try again next year. Well, that is all I have for today's video. I was not able to complete the challenge in 3 attempts. And until next time, see you guys later.